And we're back to learning Photoshop in a year, day 37. Let us add the next tool to our stack. We're going to talk about the Marquee tool. In principle, there are 4. We want to talk about the first 2 that have this M right next to it, which is the short key, and they work the same. One is for rectangles, the other for ellipses. I'll create a new layer. Here it's empty. Then left click drag with my Marquee tool. And now I can use the paint bucket tool. Black is my foreground color. Left click on it. Under select, you can deselect it or just press Ctrl D. And this erases the selection that was created by the Marquee tool. Let me delete this layer, create a new one. Again, I use the Marquee tool, left click drag. And now watch the first 2 modes. The first one is for new selection, second for adding. I switch to the first one and now left click drag. And this erases the last selection and creates an entirely new one. And for adding, it's going to add my new selection to the old one, and then I can use the paint bucket tool again, Ctrl D to deselect, and there's now one shape. Let's do it again. I'll left click drag. Now I use the third mode, which is for subtraction. So you can even create cutouts in your selections. And then still use the paint bucket tool. There's a 4th mode, and it's for intersections. I rarely use it, but just to explain it, 3rd mode creates cutouts like this. I press Ctrl Z. 4th mode gives you the intersection, so the overlap between the 2 that you've created, and it's the difference between them. As I've said, usually I don't use that. I have it set to the 2nd mode for most of the time, and then we have 2 options that I want to talk about, feathering and a style. Style allows you to set, for example, a fixed size. You can adjust width and height here, and then wherever you drag it, it will have this fixed size, and you can only move it around. You can also see the 2nd mode is still active, so you can connect already existing selections with it. Fixed ratio can be adjusted in width and height, but it will always have the same aspect ratio. Usually you want to have normal, so let me set it back, press enter, and now I'll show you the feathering. So this is a feather of 0, which simply means that we have very clear edges. But you can also feather that out, which gives you a little bit of a gradient on the edges. Keep in mind, when the size is too big, you might get a warning message. Let me make that 250, that should be way too big. Left click drag. And there you go. And this is because the feathering basically turns it round on the edges. If I make that 100, you can see that clearly. And the further I go down, the more we will have a rectangle with rounded corners. So that is something to keep in mind when you want to use a feather. Let me set it to 5, we still have a little bit of roundness. And now use the paint bucket tool, left click on it. And this is what I mean by gradient. It now gradually becomes transparent, and therefore we have a black and white effect with these feathered edges. Just to compare it, here's a feather of 0. And all of that works with the Ellipse Marquee tool as well. The only difference is that we, as the name suggests, have an ellipse now and not a rectangle, but it also has these 4 modes, it has a feather, and it has the style option. So here would be one with a feather, a bigger one without. This box for anti-aliasing is there. It smoothens the edge transition, so it makes the edges a little bit cleaner, you could say. But this only applies when you have roundness. So when we have the rectangle tool and set the feather to 0, then this won't be available. You can see that here it's grayed out. It's a good tool to know. You should definitely check that out yourself. You're a beginner, play a little bit around with it, create some shapes. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.